me just finish up what I was saying at the end of the last video with a quick review. So if you want to wake up a path that has been deselected and start drawing on it again, you need to select it with the pen tool. And if the last anchor point is just a plain old anchor point with no handles, all you would do is click on it with the pen tool. If it's this kind where it just has a single handle, in other words, there's no handle coming out this way, you would just click on it. If it is this kind where there's two handles, then you need to click and drag, because clicking on it is also the way to delete an anchor handle. You probably remember that from when we needed a sharp transition, like from going from here to here. We clicked on it to make the handle go away here. So in this case, if I just click right here, that wakes that up and I can continue drawing on it. And here, just click and I can continue. Whoops, need to deselect here. In this case, I can just click here, wake that up, keep going. And then over on this one, Command and click to deselect. I have to click and I have to drag so that I continue having an anchor handle there. Or I'm sorry, not an anchor handle, but a handle. All right, now let's show you how to add, remove, and convert handles. So let's say that I want to make something more like this out of this. Well, first thing I need to get rid of this. So you probably remember before I said with the direct selection tool you can select a path. Now if I select with the regular selection tool and I think that I'm selecting just a path, it's not the case. I'm actually selecting the whole entire thing and it all moves together. Command Z to back that up. But with the pen tool I can actually select right in here and click delete. But notice it left this anchor behind. So a better way to do that would actually have been to just draw a marquee with this like that and then hit delete, and now the path and its anchor went away. But let's say that you did it that other way, like this. There's a quick way to see if you have any of that garbage laying around, because it can actually cause problems with certain features, and that is to change your view just temporarily to outline mode. Outline mode shows you everything that's on the page, even if it's hidden by other objects. So there it is, there's that anchor. Just click on it and delete it now, and then go back to view and change back to preview mode. So we're going to try to make this look more like this, and it's actually made from this is how I did it, so I know it can be done. All I need is an anchor point about right here. So the long cumbersome way is to actually switch tools and go to add anchor point, or a little less cumbersome would be to remember these shortcuts to get the tool on the fly. But the pen tool is pretty smart. If this thing is awake and I click here, it's smart enough to know that I want to add something. So watch, let me first wake it up. I'm going to hold the command key so that I can select it. Wake it up. Now, if I put the cursor over here, notice it changes to the plus symbol next to it. So if I click right here, I add the path. Then I'm going to grab this direct selection tool, click right on that anchor that I made, bring that up, and now it looks a lot like this one. Okay, so how about if I want to change this to look more like this? First of all, we need to get rid of that thing that we added to it. So notice this time I'm selecting the path and the anchor. Hit the delete key. So what I need to do is just get rid of this anchor right here. So I'm going to grab the pen tool. I'm not grabbing the minus tool, and it is already been selected. And when I click over here, it's going to change to a minus automatically. When I click there, now it looks just like that one. So adding, deleting, very simple. Pen tool is pretty smart. Now converting, there's an option in here to convert. The pen tool is actually fairly smart on that one. So if we have a straight, just a regular anchor point, a corner anchor point, I can wake this up and then go over it with the pen tool. I do have to hold down the Option key to do this, but it'll change to that tool, and now I can click and drag and I can convert that. And the opposite is true. If I have a corner anchor or a straight anchor and I want to change it to a curved one with handles, I can wake this up, hold down the Option key, and change that. Now you can also, if you like to, I don't know, get more of a visual of what you're doing, you can select an anchor point. So let's select this one here. And you can go up to here and you can change it. So this is what's called a contextual menu. It changes depending on what's selected, and one of the options would be to change this over to a corner. And when I do that, I select right on, you can see it has no anchors to it. And the opposite can be true. Select it, go back to this. Now it's not going to remember how the handles were on that, so you might have to click and drag and change these with the direct selection tool. The most common question with the pen tool is, when I'm tracing something, how do I know where to place the anchors? So there is no easy answer to that, unfortunately, but you can get a pretty good idea if you just start to trace things. So let's import something. And what I suggest you do is try to draw things like guitars that have a combination of curved and straight lines, or just draw a picture on a piece of paper, scan it in, and place it. So let's review how to place an object in here. It's File, Place, and then you go to a folder where you have an option, and I'll actually show you where I found this. Um, all I did was I went to Google Images and I Googled pen tool maze, M-A-Z-E, and I downloaded what I found here. So once you finally find that file, you just click on the file and then you click place. And wherever you were last working is where it's going to show up. We haven't talked too much about layers yet, but and I will do a separate video on layers, but for now just know this, that you start out with the layer automatically in here. This is the little icon for layers over on the side. I always suggest that when you import an image, you lock it and then go down here to this icon, create a new layer, and then trace on that layer. Put that back in its house. Now, this image that I found, and I promised I'd tell you where I found that, so let me just show you. Here's all I did was I did a Google search. I just typed in pen tool maze on images, and here it is, and you can see here's the website, webwasp.co.uk. And there's actually a really good, super detailed tutorial on using the mouse tool on this site. But you can just click here to get to this image, click on the full-size image, and then right-click on it, save it to your desktop or wherever you want it, and then you have it there for use. What's nice about this image is it shows you a complex shape to make, but it shows you exactly where the person who created this placed the mouse and what they did. I'm not going to do this whole thing, but I just want to point out a couple key things. So obviously these are straight corners, so all I'm doing is clicking, no dragging, of course, so you get the idea there. Let's start from here. So, well, let's start from here. So click here, click here, click here. Now I don't want to click and drag per se, because if I do that, it affects this line. So I'm going to Command Z to undo that. So what I have to do is click, then hold down the Option key and drag. And so all I have to do is follow this person's work here, and you can see exactly what it takes to do this. So where do you place the anchor point when it's not so obvious like this? Well, generally where there's a change of direction is a good place to do it. And here it's changing from very curvy to very straight in here, so it makes sense to go ahead and place something here and here where it ends being so curved, and here's pretty much a change from this arcing this way. I guess you could say going from clockwise to counterclockwise. So just follow along with this. Let me just see if there's any more important ones in here. Yeah, sure enough, here's one that we talked about. Oops, I meant to just press the command key, and there we are back. Okay, so we go from a corner to, we just need one. You know how to do that by now. Just hold down the option key, but here's a nice change of direction. So I have to click here, and I can't pull this way. So don't make that mistake. I have to actually pull this way, but I need control over this anchor handle, so I have to hold down the option key, swing it around. So that's an important one to remember. And then very similar thing here, where I'm going to click, pull. This is a long pull. Now I'm going to hold down the option key, swing around, come back over here, click and pull to get this shape. And then remember this one, click on the anchor to make it disappear. So you now have the ammunition to use the pen tool. There's really nothing more to it, at least that I can think of right now. You're probably thinking, man, in this day and age, isn't there an easier way to do this? But this is truly the way to get the most organic look to it. There is a feature inside of Illustrator where you can actually take an image, bring it in, and run a feature called Live Trace. But Live Trace leaves some awful telltale signs that that's how you did it. You get these really ugly little things that show up in it. And I'm going to be honest with you, most creative directors recognize that in an instant and just think that it looks cheesy and that, you know, maybe you were too lazy to draw it out and do it the right way. I'll show you real quick what Live Trace is, but I heavily caution you never to use it in anything in your portfolio, or if you do to get started, go back and clean it. Okay, so I imported an image or placed an image as I've explained before. And then to do this horrible live trace thing, you click on the image, you go option, or I'm sorry, object, live trace, and first thing you want to do is set up the tracing options. Now experimentation in here will definitely make it better. You know, in other words, if you're not real happy with what you get the first time and it's just for something simple, not a portfolio piece, you can go back in and change it. So notice I'm changing it to color. You can limit the amount of colors that you get here. Maybe I'll just bump this up just a little bit, and then it tells you, you know, basically at what resolution it's going to work with the image at. And just go in and change these areas. Like the minimum area that it'll create will be 10 pixels by 10 pixels wide. If you make this bigger, you'll have less little tiny shapes to deal with, but less detail, and so on. And then you just click on trace, and it does its best to trace the image. And this is the stuff that is just awful about live trace, is these horrible little, just raggedy little shapes that are in here. You could do much better with the pen tool just going in here tracing it. And if you like the fact that it narrows down the choices of the colors, then my suggestion would be to first go into Photoshop and posterize the image and play around with the values. And I'm sure we'll get around to talking about that, but if not, if you just Google that subject, I'm sure you'll find some stuff on it. But poor Cooper, he lost his eyes too. So anyway, there's your live trace.